the case was that Shokin, there was all this pressure to fire Shokin from this, the larger community, and then he was fired, and then somehow Burisma was let off the hook. I mean, that's what the story was.
And Joe Biden, of course, was the driving force behind his firing.
Yeah, he was involved in that. There's obviously video.
Involved? I mean, Biden bragged at Council on Foreign Relations, they had $1 billion coming from IMF, and I said, if you don't fire this man, you're not getting the $1 billion.
Right. But it's I think on this one, it certainly wasn't made clear to us at the board level, that was a favor to be done. The narrative, I don't know the narrative, and I don't want to. I don't want to lead anyone down that kind of path. That's what happened, because I don't know the narrative.
But Joe Biden knew that his son was on the board of this company that was being hassled by the prosecutor whose firing he was calling for.
Right.
Yeah. And this took place 3 years after he sent you a letter saying thanks for all the work you're doing with Hunter. So clearly he would know this would benefit the family.
Right. I don't want to get it, but the narrative was that Shokin was already taken care of. That was the popular narrative. That's the only thing that
he was already on his way out.
Exactly. That was the narrative that was fed to the board.
Okay, so you were told when Shokin got fired that it had nothing to do with it.
No, we were told that was bad and we don't want a new prosecutor. Shokin was taken care of. So it's this is not like, checkers. This is multiple dimensions here. So a popular...
This is like Connect 4.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's I think in this particular case, it's pretty high stakes and pretty sophisticated. So the narrative that I was told was that. That's just, I've said it under oath and I'll say it again. That was the narrative.
That was the narrative. Were you aware... Do you have knowledge that Hunter spoke to his dad about Burisma?
Do I have knowledge?
Yes. Do you know that Hunter spoke to his dad about Burisma? Did you ever see them talk about it, hear them talk about it? Was Joe Biden?
No, I don't have knowledge of that, though I'd assume it.
You would assume it.
Right. I would assume it in a general sense of travel and that kind of thing. But on, I've told a lot of people in the past, there was not business content conversations. It was the idea of signals and influence. The prize is enough in speaking or hearing or knowing that you have that proximity to power. No one is so unsophisticated that's been in politics for 50 years that Hunter is going to talk about, the last quarter's, how many billion cubic meters of gas we pumped out of the ground. Right. So it's just, I think a lot of the narrative gets caught up on, over speculation of these conspiracy theories that are just not true. I think
that's not the way it actually works.
It just doesn't work like that.
So it's enough to be sitting at a meal at Lake Como with your new Ukrainian friends, and your dad happens to call. Let's put him on speaker.
That would be that's. I think that's enough. That's the second most powerful man in the world. It's just how the world works.
So there's been a lot of effort on the part of Republicans to prove money transfers from Hunter to Joe.
Right.
And then there's the other brother, Jimmy, who I'm going to ask about in a minute. But so far there are hints of it, but we haven't seen the direct transfer. But did you ever wonder when you were in the Biden orbit, how do they live so well? I mean, Hunter grew up at a huge house in Wilmington. The family had this very expensive beach house. And how do you do that on a politician's salary? We don't pay our politicians very much.
Well, I think Hunter had a successful lobbying and advisory business.
Sure, but these are his dad's houses.
Right.
How does that, did you ever wonder, how do you do that?
Well, at that question, I really only was under the kind of tenure at the Naval Observatory, so I knew the government was paying. We were paying for it.
Yeah, no, of course, but they had these other houses.
Yeah, I was at Bo's house, I was at Hunter's house, but those were the houses. So that was not something that I often thought about. Put it that way.
Okay. It's just interesting because you're coming from a non-political world on Long Island, middle-class world, and you wind up in, around all these high flyers.
Right. I mean,
and some of them but don't have business jobs. They have political jobs, but they're living really, really well.
Yeah, I thought the cost of living was lower and what. No, I don't. It is pretty remarkable. It's
pretty
beautiful,
weird, right?
Suburban place to live, and I mean, I think the money that's thrown around DC is significant. I mean, as far as lobbying contracts and legal contracts and all of the the bills that go out, and I mean, there's money flow. I mean, it certainly is.
But it sticks to the people who live there. Like the money's supposed to go out to the whole continent.
Right. Yeah, that's a bigger discussion.
Doesn't? Interesting. So when Biden called for Shokin to be fired,
right,
very publicly, and then got it done, like, bam.
Right.
What did you think?
Again, the narrative. This has been. They've tried to beat this into my head a million times because it does work on paper as far as the the logical steps. But we were told that Shokin had already been taken care. That he was under control, and that this is going to be a whole big problem for Burisma now.
It's a huge problem
because Shokin. I mean, I don't know.
The guy who was going to shut our business down just got fired. Oh no!
It's just what it was. It was kind of pounded into our heads. Obviously, as I look back in the rear view, it doesn't paper as well. But it it looks like there was something.
I'm asking you because you said at the outset that, well, first of all, that you liked Hunter,
absolutely,
who was a very likable. I can attest personally, a very likable guy,
absolutely,
but that you thought it was, useful. He knows his way around Washington. His dad's vice president of the United States. All this stuff. It's all good. But that there was the Icarus problem.
Right.
That like if you use those contexts too much, maybe it hurts you. Maybe you
absolutely.
get burned by it. Did you feel that when Shokin got fired, like, ooh, maybe this is a little little close to the sun here?
No, on that one, I just was kind of listen. I was believing the narrative because we were in where I felt the Icarus was when he announced we were in Doha. As one is running around with some of the royal family at another conference, and part of the benefits of actually doing the Rosemont-Seneca partnership, you're getting access in these meetings. Anyway, long story short, we're in Doha, and they release some picture on the website that Hunter had joined the board. And that was that was like the tipping point where Icarus had arrived a little too close to the sun.
Yeah.
And the rest of my story has, been a slow downward.
Yeah. The trajectory changed at that point.
It was like this, exactly. That was the Icarus moment. When I saw that release and I saw, it was the middle of night.
Burisma that had released that?
Burisma released it, didn't tell us, and it was like the most Googled news story like in the world for 18 hours. And I was like, this is going to be a different
because
world.
To a civilian, you're thinking, okay, huge, super lucrative Eastern European natural gas company,
incredible.
Sort of semi-employed kind of lawyer lobbyist from D.C., like, what is he doing on their board? Like, it just seemed...
Right.
Yeah.
And it really, at the time, I was... I didn't have, we didn't calculate the risk appropriately, and the rest is history.
So whether or not Hunter convinced his dad to come out against Shokin, and there's debate,
right?
It was very clear that the Burisma guys were hoping to leverage Hunter's relationship with the vice president, his father.
Yes.
At one point, they told Hunter to, quote, call his dad.
Yeah, I think referencing the email that you put earlier, there was constant pressure to send signals, to leverage all of his dad included, but the Biden brand, all of the the DC insider and relationships to help Burisma survive. I think that's at the end of the day what we're talking about.
I mean, that was the
idea.
That's what he brought.
It was that ability to help on the geopolitical stage, keep them out of trouble, keep them out of investigations, unfreeze assets, unsuccessfully, unfreeze visas, and the first challenge, which was there was a 23 million pound account that was released to Burisma because of alleged non-cooperation by the prosecutor. I don't know if it's Shokin or the guy before that, but that was successful. And I think...
Did Hunter help with that?
The perception of him being on the board probably provided a halo that helped with that, but no active, there was no active.
But they were not consulting him on like pipeline construction or wellhead design.
No. It was hiring lobbyists and law firms to and various like NGOs to help clear the path from regulatory roadblocks at the end of the day.
When they asked him to call his dad, did he?
I was not privy to the conversation directly, but they've asked, that was, Vadim met with his dad at dinner at Cafe Milano, a famous dinner at Cafe Milano. So, I did not listen to a particular call where they spoke, but I know that the request was made by Vadim a lot.
What did Vadim say to the vice president at that dinner at Cafe Milano?
At dinner was, politics. I think there was a World Food Program element, weather, nothing specific to Burisma.
But the idea was by having that relationship and by saying, I met with the vice president in Washington, that gives him SWAT.
Yeah, I think at the end of that's the, the prize, or the, being able to have, whether it's on, speakerphone or in person, to have, that person in direct contact, whether you're talking about, weather or, politics or what have you, that's the important part. I don't think, there's no relevance in asking, the vice president about, the gas,
right,
revenues or anything
it's
like that.
Enough.
It was never, it's enough. And the prize is that contact and that access to power.
Younger people say the news is full of lies.
In Kennedy's motorcade.
239 people. The death of Jeffrey Epstein.